Hi Scouts, Mr. Chris here. Sorry if you can't hear me too well, but this is the first video I've ever made, so I'm going to be learning just like you guys are. So last week at our den meeting we started working on Bear Picnic Basket. Remember, we made homemade MREs? So this week I wanted to keep working on Bear Picnic Basket with a couple of the other activities from that adventure. So specifically, we are going to make our own cookbooks. Now this is mine that I made, and I'm going to teach you Scouts how to make it. Okay? So let me reset the camera, and I'll show you the supplies you'll need and how to make it. Okay, Scouts. So we don't need too much to make our own cookbooks. What you're going to need is a brown paper bag, 5 index cards at least, or you can use sheets of paper torn in half, or you can print your recipes off on the internet and use those instead. You're going to need a ruler. That ruler is going to help you to cut your yarn, and your yarn is going to be cut to at least 1 foot. I didn't quite use that, but 1 foot gives you enough length to be able to tie your knot at the end without too much trouble. You're going to need a hole punch, a pair of scissors, and then whatever markers or pencils or pens or crayons or paints you want to use to decorate your cookbook cover and to write down your recipes. So, let's get started. Step 1, take your paper bag and cut right along where the bottom of the bag is folded. That's going to be garbage. Now we can open up our paper bag a little bit, and where it's folded we're going to cut. Whew, Mr. Chris needs some practice with the scissors. Now the paper bag is going to make up the front and back cover of our cookbooks. So we're going to cut these off. And I'm going quick here so I can teach you Scouts, but you can take your time and make that cut as neat as possible. And then we're going to cut these off. Now Mr. Chris is going to cheat a little bit just to make this a little bit faster, because these sheets are still going to be bigger than what we need. Alright. So, with that done, we have a front and a back. Now, part of the bag has a seam that goes down it because the paper bags are made from 1 sheet of paper, and then they're just folded over and glued. We're going to make that our back cover because it's not really nice to look at. So then we have the front of the bag, which is smooth. We're going to lay them down, one on top of the other, and take our 5 index cards, and you can add more cards if you'd like, but we're going to choose 5. Okay, we're going to stack them up. We're going to put them right at the left edge of the bag, as centered as we can. Okay, then we're going to mark where we want our holes. And it doesn't matter how many you have or where you put them, but I like to just put one on a line, skip a line, all the way down. I think that makes it really neat. Okay? So once we have our holes marked, we have to pick up, grab our hole punch, and punch our holes. Oops. Didn't have the paper bag in there. Let's see if I can get that to squeeze in. There we go. There we go. Oh, my hole punch is full. Wow. I guess there's been a lot of arts and crafts happening in the Shorkey house. Get those lined up a little bit. It can be tricky to keep everything together. You can see even Mr. Chris is having a little trouble, but that's okay. As long as we take our time, line everything back up as best as we can. Your yarn, these holes are going to be more than big enough for your yarn to go through. If you don't have a hole punch or yarn, you can always just use a needle and thread to do this. Okay, so once we have our holes punched, we're going to take our index cards, we're going to take our top cover, we're going to lay our index cards in between the two, lay our top cover back on, and get ready to sew. So we have our yarn, and the yarn's big enough where we don't really need a needle. If you have one, you can use it, or you can even put a piece of tape around the end to make it hard. So now what Mr. Chris is going to do is come from the bottom, go up through, and I'm going to try to leave about 1.5 inches of yarn on the end. And I'm just going to pinch that with my finger there to hold it. Okay, so I'm holding it with my finger and my thumb. So now we just got to go over, under, over, under. Pulling it tight as I go, but not too tight. All the way through. And I used blue thread because it's one of the Cub Scout colors, but you can use any color you want. You can even use crazy colors or multicolors. This is your cookbook, so you make it to fit your personality. So once we get it all the way through, we want to come back because we want to double stitch it. So we came through the top, now we're going to go back to our last hole and go top to bottom. And it's a little tricky because now your hole's kind of full of yarn, and this is where either having it taped or having a needle would help. But if I keep this first piece, my 1.5 inches that I left here, if I keep that held tight, I can go back through because it helps keep the yarn thin. And just keep pulling it through. See how it's starting to fill in the gaps? So there's a gap there. I'm going to come through, grab the yarn, pull tight. There's the hole. We're almost there. Couple more holes, Scouts. Here we go. Last hole. Now, it's all the way through all the holes. So now, I've got 2 ends of my thread. Okay? I'm just going to use a square knot. This is good practice for you, Scouts. You can use any knot you want, but Mr. Chris is going to use a square knot, just in case I want to add recipes to this later on. I know I can undo a square knot. With that tight, I can take my scissors and I can snip off the ends. And there you go. So now I've got my index cards, I've got my front and my back cover. Now I can decorate this any way I want and I can fill it with recipes. But here's what I want you Scouts to do. You need to pick at least 1 breakfast recipe, 1 lunch recipe, 1 dinner recipe, and a healthy snack. So that's 4 recipes, which means the 5th recipe can be anything you want. It can be your favorite food, it can be a camping food, it can be a crazy dinner or a snack. But you guys have to have at least 5 recipes in here. Okay? Let me reset the camera one more time and we'll wrap up this portion of Bear Picnic Basket. Alright, Scouts, that's going to wrap up the cookbook portion of Bear Picnic Basket. So make sure you fill it with your recipes. Remember, 5, 1 breakfast, 1 lunch, 1 dinner, and 1 healthy snack, and then decorate it any way you'd like. Now remember I said there's going to be homework. I can't do everything on a video, and we really wouldn't be able to do this part in our den meeting either. But it's great to do at home. So the next part is to plan, prepare, serve, and clean up after a meal with your family. Okay, now this doesn't have to be a big dinner. It doesn't have to be a breakfast. It can be a healthy snack, but you have to do 2. So, I know for Tristan and I, we could do 2 healthy snacks, but what we're going to do is 1 healthy snack, and then he's going to decide on what we're going to have for dinner, and we're going to plan that out. I have a feeling he's going to pick tacos. He loves tacos. So, remember, 2 meals, they can be 2 healthy snacks. When you're done with that, make sure your parents log in to Scoutbook, or they get on our den chat that we have and send me pictures of your cookbook with the recipes in it. I don't need a picture of every recipe. And make sure they take a picture of what meals you decided to cook. I would love to see them. I'm curious as to what your favorite foods are. I know for Mr. Chris, my cookbook has Dutch oven peach cobbler. It has cowboy steak and potatoes. And my favorite breakfast, Spanish omelet. So, until next time, Scouts, have fun, stay safe.